Hello, this is Sandra Pummel coming to you from Templeton, California. And today I wanted to make a podcast and a little show to talk about a topic that's impacting the Christian churches today and individuals, and that I think has been long overdue as a topic. And so I have podcasts that I listen to as well, and workshops and things like that. But I have a passion for putting material out there and creating my own work, because I think it's um, some of the things that I've been studying in my personal and professional life. I think that it's high time that we bring some of these truths back into the Christian community. So today, what we're going to be talking about is purity. And for those of you who are not Christian, it probably doesn't apply in the same way, um, because this is specifically geared toward populations of followers of Christ, lovers of God, and genuinely just people that want to form healthy relationships, because it's not something that's discussed often enough in the communities. And so, I began my journey toward celibacy and waiting for my future husband many years ago, and through that journey, um, I had learned some things about kingdom alignment when it comes to healthy relationships. And as I began to navigate through that, I began to find that a lot of this was not common knowledge within the church. In fact, most of it I had never been taught in my life. And I came across a site called moralrevolution.com, and I began to work with them and partner with them in their ministry and listen to a lot of their material, and found that you know some things that were not necessarily in the Bible that were being pushed on people in a religious way, and the fact that there were not enough, there's not enough awareness or support groups for purity in certain areas. Like, I live on the Central Coast, and there's not a lot of purity groups here. And I suppose if I had more time in my schedule or energy, maybe I would do that. But there's such a rigidity of standards placed on people. But however, there's the world, the secular world is basically pushing an anything goes mentality. And so the Christian church has really taken that in. And so they kind of have an idea that, anything goes. And through my, personal experience, just to share a little bit of my testimony, I was a bar hopper in my 20s, and so I spent a lot of time, hopping through bars, and I was part of the hookup culture, what is known as hookup culture, and it didn't work for me. It didn't yield results. It didn't yield healthy relationships for me. And interestingly, I see people that end up in marriages through that same hookup culture thing, but for me, it didn't work, right? So I was looking for something deeper. But I had to wonder how these things are achieved. So I began to look into a podcast called, and a blog on the Moral Revolution website, that talks about the intimacy ladder, and it talks about forming the basis of a relationship is on respect and trust, and meeting together in public places, going on dates, doing things that are normal before rushing into more intimate aspects of the relationship, which is something that I hadn't had any experience with. And I really didn't know anybody was saying that, and having fun together and things like this. And it's a whole movement away from the whole Netflix and chill thing. And I can't say I've been perfect, along my, dating journey. I've done some dating and everything like that, and learned some lessons. But I also found that, in the real dating world, even some of the Christians that I dated would, ghosting is a thing. They'll just leave without telling you. You'll be talking to them for, anywhere from 24 hours to 4 months, and then they're gone again. So I guess as a single woman, I began to become interested in what a healthy relationship looks like. And even as of now, as I wait for my future marriage, um, um, that I know that God has, I look at other people's lives who are living out godly lifestyles, and I think, oh, okay, that's how they did it, you know. And one of the ways that it's done is through accountability partners. And so I think there's not a lot of accountability in the churches. I think that having accountability partners for things like substance abuse and things like that is used, within society. There's special groups for that and things like that, but there's not a lot of accountability. And what I ended up reading about, and I thought was so interesting, is just being honest and having no shame, no shame, no condemnation, not being free to not be perfect, being free to not have a cookie cutter, experience in your dating life, but still being able to be accountable enough to be able to build like a godly relationship. And so I think it's a really interesting concept, especially because I don't see it being utilized everywhere, but I can see little pockets of where it could. I see how there could be like a counterculture movement that could come up if people were really willing to do it. But there's a lot of like the way that it's set up right now is there's a, like I said, there's like a polar opposite pull of, rigid expectations and judgment as far as like shame-based fear, um you know and there is a time and place to judge within the church. I'm not saying that, but it's the way people are going about it, as opposed to, kind of a free, authentic way of expressing, this is where I'm at today, this is what I'm struggling with, and how do I overcome this, and how do I walk this out, talk this out into getting into, building a healthy relationship. And so, guys that I've met have not really been, they either don't want to go on dates, or they can't show up, or they just want to, get into your room. And it's like these days, it's not really safe to invite someone over to your house if you don't know them. Um, or they have a girlfriend, or you know what I mean, just the number of things that I've struggled with, in my personal quest of dating. It's not like I haven't been bold and put myself out there, because I always heard people say put yourself out there. And then there's these people that are like, oh, it'll happen just when you're not looking, and all those cliches. And then one day you're just not looking and you've given up and it still hasn't happened. And so I learned to surrender and just say, in that, I know that God has plans. But as I've been in my own healing process, I just got out of a somatic workshop. It's a way of healing your body, mentally and physically, from past trauma and things like that. And so um that was interesting to go through, because as a therapist who works with the youth, there is not, even for adult clients, a lot of somatic work that's done within therapy. And since I love therapy, I think that it's important to embody all those characteristics that are necessary, which is more holistic than just, what is mental, although the mental and the physical both need health and healing. And so we contend for that as well, in the kingdom. But yeah, so I just wanted to put it out there that I was thinking about this, and that I really look up to Brittany De La Mora is someone I really look up to. She's an ex-adult film star, and she used to be in the porn industry, right? And porn is a big addiction among a lot of men in the Christian community, which is very interesting, but probably because, nobody, um well, they're just now starting to get honest about it and starting men's groups and things like that. But um when it's not integrated into a person's life in a healthy way, it's going to come out in other ways. I don't know, I'm not a man, I've never been into pornography or anything like that, I've never had a problem with that. But I'm saying that she was in the adult film industry, so she has like a sexual history. And her testimony, and she has it, on, you could find her on the internet. She has her own podcast. She's amazing to me because she is an example of how God turned her life out to have a pure godly marriage, and is using her now to testify that, hey, God can redeem anything, and I'm not in the porn industry anymore, and I think that's totally cool because I don't like this rigid dichotomy of, women have to be like Mother Mary or something, like a nun or something. It's like my feminist side is more, I guess, realistic in the sense of like, let's accept women no matter how sexual they have or haven't been. You know what I mean? Like, let's accept people for who they are and not have these rigid expectations. Um, for how women should act or how they should be. But and I'm not a feminist, like a pro-abortion feminist or anything like that. I'm not pro-choice. I'm very much pro-life. But I also am into like unconventional things, and you know, women have more of a purpose than just being in the kitchen. You know what I mean? It's like we're not living in the 1950s anymore. So I like that somebody could come out with that type of authenticity and with no fear, and getting a lot of like shade thrown at her for being honest about her past, and whereas a lot of women don't come out of that lifestyle, and for her to be able to come out of that is just like a testimony of what Jesus can do and what God can do to turn someone's life around. And for those of us who have been through trauma, or we've been like abused, we need to hear stories like that. So anyway, just on my healing journey, wanting to share some of that with you guys because I thought that it was something that is not talked about very often, and I think there needs to be some light shed. And so I thought I would create a little video on it. And anyway, stay tuned. And I hope that gives you some food for thought. And hopefully there will be some sort of a, purity movement within the church, and that it will be practical. You know what I mean? Not I mean, that we can give our lives to Jesus and sacrifice ourselves and our bodies to the Lord without having, unreasonable standards of each other, but just by trying to be obedient, but then finding like a pathway that makes it more plausible to be obedient, because things aren't being like swept under the rug and just not talked about, you know. So, anyway, as always, thank you for tuning in. This is Sandra Pummel.